Have you ever noticed this quiet frustration? You start learning something new, and just when you begin to get good at it, another curiosity appears. A new topic, a new skill, a new direction pulling your attention. And suddenly you wonder, why can't I just stick to one thing like everyone else? Maybe you've told yourself you're distracted, undisciplined, or worse, that you'll never become truly good at anything. But what if the real problem isn't your attention? What if your brain was simply built for a different kind of world? And what if the future might actually reward the exact pattern you've been trying to suppress? You have many interests. Your life probably feels like a collection of half-finished stories. You start learning design, then psychology, then writing, then technology, then philosophy. Each one feels exciting in the beginning. Your brain lights up. But eventually, something happens. The novelty fades, and your attention drifts somewhere else. So you look back and see a trail of abandoned paths, courses half completed, notebooks filled with ideas, skills that are almost useful but not fully developed. And slowly, a quiet narrative begins to form inside your mind. Maybe you lack discipline. Maybe you're unfocused. Maybe successful people just have something you don't. Psychology calls this identity-based self-talk. Your brain takes repeated patterns and turns them into a story about who you are, not what you did, but what you are. And once that story forms, it starts influencing decisions. You hesitate before committing to new projects. You feel guilt when curiosity pulls you in another direction. You compare yourself to specialists, the friend who became a doctor, the one who mastered coding, the one who built a clear career path. Their lives look linear. Yours feels scattered. But this comparison hides something important, because your brain might not be malfunctioning. It might be operating on a different cognitive strategy. And once you understand that strategy, the entire story changes. Psychology, many traits that look like weaknesses are actually adaptations to certain environments. Your brain is always trying to optimize survival and usefulness, not in the past, but in the environment it predicts. For most of history, specialization was the safest strategy. Farmers farmed, blacksmiths forged metal, doctors studied medicine for decades. The brain rewarded deep repetition because the world was stable. But today, something is changing. Careers shift, industries evolve, technologies replace old skills, and suddenly the ability to connect multiple domains becomes valuable. Instead of one deep line of expertise, the future may belong to people who build multiple deep curves. People who understand design and psychology, technology and storytelling, business and human behavior. Not because they couldn't choose, but because their brain kept exploring patterns across fields. Some researchers call this emerging skill pattern the M-shaped skill structure. Instead of one peak of expertise, you develop several, connected by curiosity. But before that becomes possible, we need to understand why your brain keeps jumping interests in the first place.
At the core of this pattern is something called novelty-driven dopamine. Dopamine is often misunderstood as a pleasure chemical, but in neuroscience, its main role is motivation toward discovery. Your brain releases dopamine when it predicts learning, not just reward, learning. Think of your brain like an internal radar. Some people's radar locks onto one signal. They feel most motivated by going deeper and deeper into the same topic. But other brains operate more like wide-range scanners. They constantly sweep the environment looking for new patterns, new connections, new ideas. This trait is strongly linked to openness to experience in personality psychology. High-openness individuals show stronger curiosity toward ideas, concepts, systems, creative combinations. And here's the important part. Your brain gets dopamine not from finishing something, but from connecting something new. Imagine two kinds of explorers. One digs a very deep well in one location. The other maps many rivers across a continent. Both are exploring, but they use different strategies. Your mind might be built for pattern mapping, and pattern mapping only becomes powerful when those scattered interests eventually connect. But that connection rarely happens by accident. It requires a different approach to learning and building skills. If your brain is wired this way, forcing yourself into a single narrow path often leads to frustration. Instead, you need a structure that works with your psychology, not against it. Here are 4 principles that help curiosity-driven minds thrive. 1. Build depth in seasons. Most multi-interest people try to learn everything at once. That overwhelms working memory. Your brain's cognitive load system can only deeply process a limited number of concepts at a time. So instead of juggling 10 interests simultaneously, choose one focus for a limited season, 3 months, 6 months. During that period, you allow yourself to go deeper than usual. Why this works? Focused attention strengthens long-term neural pathways. Your brain converts scattered information into stable skill networks. Example: someone curious about psychology, writing, and video might spend 3 months focusing only on storytelling structure. Later, that skill becomes useful across multiple domains. You're not abandoning your other interests, you're building one strong pillar at a time.
4. Create one long-term theme. Many interests feel chaotic until they orbit around a single question. Your brain naturally organizes information through narratives. A long-term theme provides that narrative. Instead of defining yourself by one skill, define yourself by one curiosity direction. For example, how humans think and make decisions. Under that theme, you might explore psychology, writing, design, behavioral science, technology. Different tools, same deeper question. Now your interests aren't random, they're chapters of the same investigation. So imagine your mind like a mountain range, not a single peak, but several rising across the horizon. Each one represents a skill you developed during a different season: writing, psychology, technology, communication. Individually, they might seem unrelated, but from a distance, they form a pattern. This is the M shape, multiple areas of depth, connected by curiosity. And when those peaks start interacting, you begin to see problems differently than specialists. You recognize patterns others miss. You combine tools from different worlds, and suddenly the path that once looked scattered begins to look strategic. So if your mind keeps wandering into new interests, maybe it isn't a flaw, maybe it's a signal that your brain is designed to explore across boundaries, to collect ideas, to connect worlds that rarely meet. But curiosity alone isn't enough. It needs structure, seasons of depth, captured ideas, bridges between fields, a question big enough to hold everything together. And over time, what once looked like distraction begins to reveal something else, a map, not of one path, but of many. And sometimes, the people who explore the most paths are the ones who eventually discover entirely new directions.